One of the greatest hazards in mining is the exposure of miners to elevated levels of toxic aerosols. These include respirable dust, diesel particulate matter, or DPM, and crystalline silica. If a miner is continually exposed to these, it can lead to debilitating respiratory diseases. So, monitoring is often used to measure and quantify the degree of exposure at a mine site. Personal monitoring is the most common approach, where samples are taken from the breathing zone of a worker during a certain period of time. You can also, though, monitor an entire area in which multiple samples are used to determine the level of toxic aerosols in the atmosphere where the miners are working. Now, usually, in either situation, these samples are collected on a filter and sent away for off-site laboratory analysis. But unfortunately, it takes time, often many weeks, to conduct the analysis and generate reports. So, it's difficult to use the data to make timely decisions that will positively affect work practices and engineering changes. However, I have a really interesting story for you this month involving one of our CORESafety companies, Peabody. We're going to hear first from Matt Pederson-Howard. Now, Matt is their VP of Health, Safety, Security, and Environment. Then we'll bring in Jiaxi Fang. He's the CEO and co-founder of a startup company in St. Louis called Applied Particle Technology, or APT. Peabody and APT are working together on a trial involving some innovative technology that APT has developed. They've created wearable and wireless area monitors to collect real-time data on exposure risks. They have a cloud engine that collects the data and a real-time online dashboard which communicates actionable insights to drive improved environmental health and safety outcomes. All right, let's get to it.
As part of our framework, we have an umbrella management system and then also a specific occupational health standard that really is focused in on three key areas of understanding what those health hazards are, and then doing a risk assessment based on those health hazards, putting in controls to manage those hazards, and then the ongoing monitoring and surveillance, which ultimately tells us that we're being successful in managing those hazards with our employees. Fundamentally, what we need to do is understand what people are exposed to what contaminants and to what level they're exposed to and how damaging that can be over time. Traditionally, when it comes to dust, that would be done through a time-weighted average over the entire shift. But what we're trying to do is find ways to pinpoint when the higher exposures are occurring within the shift, so being more targeted around those higher risk activities so we can pinpoint it and either eliminate that fundamental task or dust source or ultimately provide the protection when people need it.
Respirable dust samples are usually taken by a certified industrial hygienist or a specialist on site at the mine. A combination device called a cyclone assembly and a sampling pump are used to trap tiny particles from the air in the work environment. This personal monitor is usually placed on employees who wear it for up to 8 hours. It can also be placed in the area which is being monitored, rather than worn by the employees. At the end of the sampling period, the hygienist returns to remove the filters and sends them away for analysis. There are two problems with this traditional type of sampling. The samples are usually taken over a broad 8-hour work shift, and it can take weeks to get the results back from the analysis.
All we really know is, okay, over the 8 hours, there was some higher exposure. We don't know when it occurred, we don't know how it occurred, we don't know what the people were doing at the time. We don't know what equipment was there or not there. We don't know what the wind was like. All of that information, which really, helps you pinpoint how you prioritize work and how you prioritize risk reduction activities, wasn't necessarily there on a lot of this information. So Applied Particle Technology are a startup company out of Washington University in St. Louis. And they actually approached us as a company of interest to help them do a trial on some technology that they had innovated, and wanted to see the application in various industries, but particularly in mining and other heavy industries. So we were glad to help out in terms of volunteering one of our mine sites as a test location.
We wanted to leverage our expertise from research in aerosols and air quality to, build technologies and solutions that could protect workers. Current approaches to measuring or sampling dust are actually really cumbersome. They take a lot of time, and you actually don't get a lot of data. It takes 8 to 12 hours to get one data point, and you have to ship gravimetric samples to a lab where it can take weeks for them to analyze the results and get the data back. So what we've really tried to do is, is miniaturize the sensors so that they're really easy to carry for the miners, and we've also tried to make it really easy to deploy networks of sensors with our stationary and wireless wearable sensors. In these processes, the safety engineers have a pretty good understanding of the types of dust they're being exposed to, but they don't really know when and where these exposures are occurring, or they can't really necessarily test their engineering controls or their interventions in real time. So we're giving them a tool that they can, track how well these engineering controls might be working, or test how, when and where these exposures might be occurring.
They've tested this equipment now at El Segundo in New Mexico. It's a surface operation, and they've tested this in various parts of the mine, both on drills and in transfer points in or around the plant. So what we've been able to do with this technology is minute by minute, second by second, really break that shift down and see what tasks are occurring and when those spikes of dust are occurring. So it's not consistent throughout the shift. What we're not seeing is a steady flat line of exposure. What we're seeing is almost a Pareto style analysis of a very small segment of the shift, or very few tasks within the shift are really causing the bulk of the dust exposure. So if we can understand that better, what we can do is really minimize or eliminate those tasks, or provide the protection as and when people need it. So that's really been the focus of the team at El Segundo as they've been doing this trial.
By allowing them to collect this data in real time and really easily, it's really allowing them to be much more proactive on protecting workers and with their health and safety risks. Some of the biggest challenges have been that with current technologies and approaches, they're really cumbersome, difficult to use, or it just takes too long to get the data. So really cutting down the time and allowing them to respond instantaneous is really what we're trying to do. So with current methodologies, they actually rely on filter samples. So what you're actually doing is you're basically collecting dust onto a filter and then averaging that, so you get one data point over an 8 to 10 hour work shift. And then you have to send that filter to a lab, and then you have to wait weeks for those results. Now that will tell you if you're above or below the limit in accordance with MSHA or other standards. But what it doesn't really tell you is what was happening in between that shift. And it also can't tell you how it's really varying throughout, the year. As we all know that, every day can be a little bit different with different processes, and these exposures can vary quite a bit.
It also gives us that real-time alert if we needed it, where we can actually notify the people who are performing the task that they're in a high dust environment, either to put protective equipment on or stop the task itself.
We've been deploying these in a couple of different areas across the mine. We've put these monitors in cabs for, high wall drills and some dozers and some different equipment. And we've gotten some really interesting insights, helping them identify, first confirming that these cabs are actually properly sealed and their miners are adequately protected, but also, helping them identify when these cabs might be leaking and when they actually might need to maintain some of the cabs and their miners might be at increased risk for exposures. We've also deployed these monitors across different areas of the plant by crushers and help them identify best practices and potential engineering controls to further protect miners and map out areas of high risk within the facility. And then really the most powerful thing is that it's giving them the ability to kind of test things continuously and make it easy to test things and make sure that things are operating properly and get those types of real-time insights. So it's really beyond guessing and checking. You're actually able to confirm, how well your engineering controls or safety and health practices are working. Our sensors are, they're real-time monitors. So we're actually using lasers to actually count these particles. What that allows them to do is collect this data continuously on a minute-by-minute basis and send that data to our platform, and then we can analyze this data in real time so they know what their exposure risks are constantly. So the way that our monitors work is that they integrate sensors, particle counters and particle sensors, which actually use a laser and it draws in air, and if there are particles in that air, it counts those particles. So what it's doing is giving you size and concentration. And so we have our own algorithms to analyze that data and convert that into mass concentration. And then that allows the safety engineers to see, time-weighted averages or real-time concentrations of these exposures. Well, once we have the data downloaded onto our cloud platform, we have an online dashboard where they can see that data, both the historical data and the real-time data, while we also generate reports for them as well. So, our vision is we really want to be able to provide enough monitors and data so that everyone can be monitored and they know, what their exposure risks are in real time. And we really don't want the data to be the limiting factor. So we're really looking to build a platform that encompasses both the monitors and the software and the analytics, really to empower safety engineers.
Now, I will say this, we're not using this technology as a way to replace those shift duration samples we do. Of course, we're obligated to do it anyway, but we know there's kind of a different purpose in what we're trying to do here. That's an obligation, that's a requirement. It gives us a view of the whole shift exposure, and it's more accurate in terms of what that total contamination is over that period. This is not what you would say as a regulatory approved sample. It's not necessarily an approved sampling methodology, but what it is doing is it's saying we know it's accurate enough to tell us where the problems are, and that's really what we're trying to do.
So there you have it. Some really interesting developments taking place at Peabody in the form of APT's real-time dust monitoring technology. If you're interested in learning more, you can always email Matt Pederson-Howard at Peabody. His email address is here on the screen behind me. And if your mining operation is interested in possibly testing the technology that we've shown you on your sites, you can reach out to Jiaxi Fang at Applied Particle Technology, and here's his email address as well. Okay, now let's dive right into CORESafety's module number 10, Resources and Planning. This is what you need to know in order to manage and align human resource activities to achieve the 055 objective.
Individual performance is critical to achieving the 055 objective. That makes close alignment and mutual support between line management, human resources, and safety and health professionals vital to success. The selection, training, and management of personnel are critical to achieving safety excellence, as companies depend on the behavior of individuals working within management-controlled environments and processes. Developing hiring standards should describe the physical demands of each job and verify that the candidates can perform the work before hiring. Use behavior-based questions in the hiring process to highlight personal safety and health values and improve judgment regarding candidates' alignment with company values. Establish working safely as a condition of employment and define the consequences of failing to do so. Require job candidates to submit a pre-employment physical to ensure that they are physically able to perform the described job and identify any pre-existing accommodations. Ensure alignment between collective bargaining agreements and safety and health policies as appropriate. For example, safe work as a condition of employment, drug and alcohol testing, health monitoring, etc. Integrate safety and health standards into succession planning. Develop an employee assimilation process to ensure the safe and healthy integration of new employees into the work environment. Finally, recruit workers with a strong personal safety value and ensure that they are free from the negative influence of drugs and alcohol, mentally and physically prepared to work, and ready and willing to work in compliance with your company's rules and procedures. This will greatly increase the potential for companies to achieve the 055 objective. These human resource related activities should be actively and consistently managed to be effective.
You can learn more about Module number 10 by going to our website at CORESafety.org. And in March, we'll continue with CORESafety's Module number 11, Change Management. Until then, please be sure to follow our updates on Facebook and Twitter. For CORESafety and the National Mining Association, I'm Nelson Duffel. I'll see you here again next month. In the meantime, though, please be safe out there, and thanks for watching. Special thanks to Peabody and to Applied Particle Technology for this month's interviews.
To share one of your safety stories, videos, or photos, email us at info@CoreSafetyTV.org.